Lisa Copeland, and I want to invite you to my show, The Big Sell. Are you ready to stop being a small player in a big world? Are you ready to decommoditize your business? Are you ready to stand aside from the competition? Join me every week on The Big Sell.
When I was playing ball, I was in a struggle phase. I was on the struggle bus, you could say. And it was an invitation to sit down and learn more about myself, learn meditation, learn visualization, learn that mindset to be successful. And I had success. And so when I finished my doctorate, that's the reason I went into psychology, is I knew that the mind was so powerful. I was always fascinated in the science of business. But when I went and did my PhD in clinical psychology, specialized in kind of this role between medical and psychological conditions, and then I went to go work at Merck and then Bristol Myers Squibb after my internship. And the reason was I was fascinating in business. I mean, I wanted to know what it took to take a product and go from zero to $1 billion product, the decisions, the science, and all that. So when I went back out in the field for Bristol Myers, I had a lot of parents that would call me and say, hey, can you help my kid out? You know, you have the training, you're a licensed psychologist, you're a former athlete. And I was sure. And I did it for fun. And next thing you know, fun became a passion, passion became a profession. And it was a life-changing experience. In 2011, I was wanted to get out early in the year. I told my wife that I was done. We had a kid who was going to be a freshman in high school. And I think that's about right. And we had no college plan. And I sat down and said, look, I'm going to do this. And she said, well, you better replace your salary. And I was making a great living in the pharma industry.
Oh, yeah.
But I sat down and I said, all right, so February of 2011, I replaced my salary 100%. And I did that while I was still working for the pharmaceutical company. And I worked on the weekends. And so I hustled. And
okay, so let me ask you this. How did you replace your salary 100%? I mean, you were selling pharmaceutical sales, right? I mean,
I was in medical, yeah, but I worked my ass off.
Right.
So what I did was after hours on the weekends, I traveled and I just lined up as many appointments as I could to show my wife that I could replace that salary. And it wasn't just this take-home salary that I had to replace. Because she's so conservative, it was the grossed up salary. It was the benefits. It was the car. It was the car insurance. It was the medical insurance, everything. And I don't think she really thought I'd do it. I think she believed in me, but thought we got a couple years to figure this out. And I did it. And I remember sitting in a hotel room in Chicago, calling her saying, what did it add up to? And she said, you did it. Now, at that time, it was great extra money, right? We were just putting that money on the side.
Right.
But I was 38, had been out of school for about 8 years, and said, I'm doing this. And so then it became, okay, how are we going to do this? And I was able to do some consulting work to go back with the pharmaceutical company. But what's interesting is that was April of 2011 I left. And on Father's Day of June that year, my dad got very, very ill and passed away in September. So I spent most of June, July, August, September working with him, staying with him and the family and bouncing back and forth, but also trying to start a business. And I just kind of took it as, kind of like, this is the plan that's in front of me. And if I just do good work and invest in people, I didn't heavily market. I didn't go out and cold call. I just believed that every person who trusted me to see me, I was going to give them everything I had.
So now the business you're talking about is the MindSide that you formed in February of 2011 in Birmingham, Alabama. And so you're applying the MindSide, working with professional and amateur athletes to optimize performance, collegiate programs, and golf academies on establishing culture, managing expectations, and committing to excellence.
Yes.
Wow.
So to me, it was, look, I'm as competitive as they get. Okay. And to me, it was, what did the best of the best in my field do? What is it that I could do better? Can I be truly critical? Can I look at how we could do things better on a daily basis? And more importantly, can we work our ass off? And I used to always say, I will lick the concrete outside of my office in order to get revenue. And if people want to hire me, and I'll over deliver. And we just started that. And then in September, August of 2012, we went into an office and then started growing the team. And we had some ups and downs with that, but now we have a team of 7. And probably this time next year, we'll have a team of 11. And it's just growing. And I hope it's because that we do it the right way. But more importantly, it's because, it's what my wife and I do. It's an all-in thing. Can I be truly self?
Right. Okay. But so let me ask you that, because there's so many people out there that follow me, that follow you. Now, the way you and I met is that we have the same agents in New York,
Yes.
To Market Media, and which we love those guys. But, you know, not everybody's willing to lick the concrete now I would see, I like that about you. Already we're friends. You know, but what advice would you give to somebody who isn't quite that passionate, that says, you know what, I want to go out on my own? Because you obviously had a burning desire for success. You had a burning desire to go out there and make something happen. And it sounds to me like something that you own, that is yours. The MindSide is your company, right? You're not working for a farm company anymore. You don't have a boss. Only boss you've got is yourself. What advice would you give our viewers?
Man, I tell you what, it would have been easier to open up a restaurant that was a franchise. There's no doubt about it, because they had a game plan. The scary thing is not having a plan. And I had to have my rear end on the line to really feel alive. And that's a scary feeling to say that, but that's true. I remember telling my wife that, like, I'm successful in the pharmaceutical industry. We could move back to Philadelphia if you want, make it great living. At the end of the day, I'm not fulfilled. And I had to feel that I had to have my butt on the line. So if you're sitting there and you want to be successful, I think there's three major things. One is it's going to take longer than you think. So don't allow your effort to be defined by the time frame. Okay. It's if you think back to the old farming lands back in the 1700s, they would plant the crops, and the older female farmer would look out there and say, oh, it's going to take X amount of time. The younger whippersnapper would come out and want to see it faster, but they had to fertilize it with cow manure. So I always tell people, you got to push through a lot of crap to see the blossoms. And it's true here, because you think, you know, Seth Godin, who's a brilliant marketing writer, wrote that early businesses fall into the dip. They have early success because they sell to the 10 or 15% of their friends, and they feel empowered. Like, I did it, I'm successful. And then what happens is they've burned out their contact list, and they haven't transitioned. So what happens is they dip, they panic, and they change everything versus reaffirming what their process is. I would tell everybody to reaffirm what your process is. If you want to get in front of clients, make 100 calls a day to find one. And if it's 100, then you'll get one. And then soon you'll start learning the confidence to get to 2, to 5, to 15, and so on. So if you can take 12 months and be all in and have no regrets, if you fail, you'll pick yourself up. But I want people to have a process that they follow. Great athletes, regardless of the organization they're in, when it gets hard, they always have a process to fall back on that knows that it was built in clearer times.
Okay, so I just had a question come in, Bhrett, from a good friend of mine, Robin Goad, and she said, she got on a couple minutes late, but she said, what was he doing as his side business? So Robin, Dr. McCabe was a pharmaceutical salesperson with a
medical
with a PhD. And his side hustle was to go out and start this business where you were consulting to golf academies, to athletes, professional and amateur. Now, do you work with amateur athletes?
Oh yeah, 100%. Oh, absolutely. I'll work with anybody who wants to get better.
And so who is your ideal client? Like, who would normally call you and say, I need you to work with my athlete? Is it a high school parent who's hoping to help their child go from the high school to college athletes? Because there's a big jump from being a high school athlete to becoming a college athlete. And of course, college to pro. Ultimately,
and I mean this in all sincerity, anybody who wants to find a better pathway to their success, I will help. There's not a perfect, because a professional athlete at the top of their world and the top of their game has different challenges, but many are the same as somebody who's in high school. See, what most of us struggle with is finding the self-belief in ourselves to be successful. So even if they're at the top of the game, what happens is they see all the, failures, they see the struggles, they see the challenges, and they lose that self-belief. Now, they may have had it early. Well, high school kids going through the same issue. The process is very similar. So I sat down with one of the world-renowned orthopedic surgeons a couple of years ago, James Andrews, who's based in Birmingham, is an LSU grad. And he said, Bhrett, he goes, the reason I work with the NFL guys is so I can better treat my local guys. And it hit me. It's like, I work with the top athletes in the world in golf and in football and baseball, but the next person that comes through my door, I want them to have the exact same experience. because in their world, it's as important to them as it is the player who's playing for $1 million on this weekend.
I just got chills when you said that. Like, that is so profound. And the fact that you all work at the highest level you can work, which would be the professional athletes, but then you're able to take that knowledge back into your local markets. So not only, do you get to work with the best of the best, but that also has to make you stronger and tougher. And I'm sure that you have to think a lot harder. And I don't know who your clients are, and I know you're not allowed to tell us. I would love to know, but let's just say it was Michael Jordan for fun, right?
Right.
If you solved a problem for Jordan, that would be amazing. And I would think you could take that knowledge and bring it back down to the high school or the college or whatever it may be, because I would think that the professional athletes have to absolutely stretch you to your outer linear orbit on what to do and how to solve their problem.
Yeah, but maybe not though. And so let me give you an example. So I've got a player right now that I work with who is so talented, is having such success, and his concerns that he had were very minimal compared to a kid who's trying to figure out a way to get to pay college and to get a college scholarship. And that kid who's trying to go to college scholarship has no control over what schools are paying attention to him, has a mom who's working 2 jobs to try to pay the bills, and his stress is different. So stress is always relative, and the stress and the limitations that we have in ourselves are always unique to us. That's why I always tell somebody, don't ever try to compare. People will say, man, this is silly that I'm worried about this. I mean, there are parents out there with sick kids. I'm like, but you don't have that. And your reality is your reality. And so if you can engage in your own reality and realize and look around and say, you know what? I mean, like for me, I looked at my job I had in the pharmaceutical industry and think I had the easiest job in the world. I mean, I didn't even have to meet numbers.
What were you selling, just for grins?
So I was in the medical side of a drug called Abilify, which is an antipsychotic medication that was being used in depression. It's a brilliant drug, life-saving drug. And it was a great drug for medical because we got to talk science and interact with thought leaders. But we weren't selling on a daily basis, but we were selling on a daily basis. I mean, you're a representative of the company. And at the end of the year, I would do my job and they would say, yep, you achieved it. Here's your bonus, your 18% bonus. It'd be like, yes. But I could coast and make my 18% bonus. I wasn't going to make more or less. I knew what I was going to make because they couldn't judge our performance based on sales in this division. And so for me, it was hard, honestly, to go to an appointment and 5 hours away or fly somewhere and sit there and have that high level interest and that competitive fire that was kicking inside of me.
Right. Okay. So, so here you were at a high level, you were making all the money, and, you yourself were a college baseball player. I know you said that earlier. What were your challenges as a player? And were those challenges, was that something that you knew that you wanted to build a life and a career helping other people with their challenges because of your challenges in the sports industry or in the sports world? That's
a good question. My challenges were I was scared to death of success. I was scared to death of the responsibility that came with continued success, meaning showing up and doing well and then having to come back and do it again. That I wasn't afraid of failure. I was good at failing. Hell, I'd done it forever. But I suffered from anxiety. I suffered from worry. I suffered from apprehension. I was scared. And it wasn't until my coach got me out of my comfort zone, challenged me, rattled my cage. He was a brilliant man. He's very psychologically savvy and got me to start fighting for me. And when I found that, and like I said, I grew up with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross coming to our house. She's the founder wrote the book on death and dying. One of the earmarked books in grieving, and spent time at our house. I mean, I grew up in these environments and I could never yet still make it relevant to me. But it wasn't until I struggled myself. And what got me wanting to work in psychology was the fact that I believe that so much of what we believe we know about the way we think and interact in the world is just total garbage because it's not true. And we're limiting people and we're limiting ourselves versus saying, you know what, look, there's a saying by Paul Mayer, who's a motivational speaker right around the Zig Ziglar time. And it's a quote that we used to use all the time at our baseball complex, which was, anything that you ardently desire, vividly imagine, sincerely believe in, and enthusiastically act upon must come to pass. But what happens is we often fail in one of those four. We either think we kind of want it, but we're not willing to be all in on what we want. See, I find that most people truly won't admit what they want. They're going to tell you what they think you want. They're going to tell you what they think other people want to hear. But very few people are willing to tap in and say, I'm going to draw a line in the sand. This is what I want. I want this. Not because of what it does for other aspects of life, but I want this.
Okay, so the professional athletes you work with, I know you're not allowed to give any names, but if you had to say overall, if you said to them, tell me what you want, what would be a resounding answer? What would be the common thread that ties professional athletes together? Because I think there's such a mystique around them, right? And and they're human. I mean, very famous athletes, and they're just like us, but they just, they outworked the competition 9 times out of 10. That's it.
I think we assume that they all want to be number one, but I don't think everybody does want to be number one. I think some people want to have stability in their life. I have what's called the 3 pursuits, which are the 3 different aspects of what human beings strive for, besides food, water, and all that other stuff. It's the fact that we all have a desire to obtain achievement, to achieve something. We all have a drive to gain social acceptance. And we all have a drive to obtain stability. Where we get in trouble is when we use one to fulfill another. So if I'm striving for accomplishment and I feel like I've won it all and everybody's going to like me, you're at a gap. So what I find with athletes is many times they're using one to fulfill another. They're scared of one aspect. So it may be that they want to achieve, but they want to achieve because they want stability in their life. And so what happens is the gap in their stability in their relationships is killing their pursuit of achievement. So I'll work on the stability side in their relationships, and then it oftentimes will free up their accomplishments. So when they sit down, I'll often say, what do you want? And they'll give me the same old answer. I want to be the best. I'm like, no, you don't. What is it that you want? Write it out. If you say, I want to have a house in the mountains and a house in the Bahamas, then write it down. Write it down. Don't be afraid or ashamed of what you want. I'll tell you right now, I don't want a house in the mountains and I don't want a house at the beach. I want a house that has a backyard where I can relax. Very clear about what I want. Okay. So people, when we assume what other people want, we're making an assumption and a mistake. And that's a psychology trick. Not trick. Everybody screwed that up one time. I mean, you think you know what the patient wants. The patient doesn't really tell you and you get it wrong and the patient leaves you. You've got to get people to be honest about what they want. And once you do that, then the pathway opens up. Because if you get on that road to what they want, a lot of stuff starts working together.
Okay. And then do you find that there's a difference between female and male athletes with their challenges, with what they want? Is there a difference?
I'd say there is.
We are wired differently, doctor.
You are wired differently, and God bless women. I mean, I think there is a difference. I mean, women typically, evolutionarily wise, tend to be gatherers. Okay. They're nurturers. Men tend to be hunters. Yep. Okay. That's just.
I teach that in sales.
Yes. It's evolutionary sound. Okay. Now, that being said, in today's world where some of the gender roles are blurring, you're seeing a little bit more of men typically coming to be more of the nurturing and women pushing a little harder to go out and gather and hunt. That's awesome. But I think that typically, this is an overgeneralization, but I think typically women do not like to be identified amongst their group as being the leader, as the superstar. Not all women.
Right.
Men don't like to be identified in the group that they're failing. Oh, female, you can tell in the group, so-and-so, you're struggling, and they'll pick it up. Okay. But if you tell that to a man, you just crush their ego. The female is going to push harder to push through that. Now, you've got to know your players. You got to know your team. You got to know your organization before you do that and make those gender assumptions. Because in today's world, those gender assumptions get us more in trouble than they do help us.
Yeah. And so, that I co-authored, always a little plug, Crushing Mediocrity with one of my dearest friends in the world. She's a female jet broker and just amazing. And so, our thing was sitting at the level we sat at in male-dominated industries, that mediocrity was rampant. Where does mediocrity, tell us how you feel about mediocrity and what do you do to help someone push through it? Because I would not think that mediocrity would be acceptable at the professional level.
Well, I don't think mediocrity is acceptable at any level. Mediocrity has a lot of seductive mistresses associated with it. And I don't mean mistresses from a male, female. What I mean by, there's a lot of things in mediocrity and everybody going, oh, that's good. You're doing good enough. You're doing good enough.
Participation trophy. Go, Johnny.
Yay, go. You did great. Because when somebody's trying to prevent you from succeeding, it's more about their insecurities than your strengths. So when we see somebody breaking from the herd to try to reach excellence, okay, the peak of the mountain is very narrow at the top. And as you're climbing the mountain, there's dead bodies and there's people who jumped off the mountain and there's people who quit for a variety of reasons, okay? And there's a reason, why, like climbing Everest is such a very difficult thing to do. So that mediocrity is, hey, but if you don't succeed, then it makes me feel better about myself that we're all together. So mediocrity is realizing and is abandoning the fact that I need to be accepted by other people who are mediocre.
So basically, a lot of people choose to stay mediocre because they want to be socially acceptable, part of the club, because the minute that they break out and go crush it, then now all of a sudden they're worried about being ostracized.
100%. What do we do in this society? We build people up to knock them down. And so we've done this forever. So here's what happens, right? If you, and I can guarantee this has happened to you in your career, a successful female, what do they want to call you?
A bitch.
100%. Okay. Oh God.
And I can be, just for the record.
Good. Go for it. You have every right to be, because it's what listen, if you stand in the way of an animal that's about to get its prey, it's going to be a bitch.
Yep.
A-hole. Okay. Because it's so, a lion only hunts when it's starving.
Oh,
how does the lioness is who trains the young male lions how to hunt. They wait till they're about 3 and then they starve them. They prevent, in other words, how bad do you want to eat? Okay. So a female is a hard driver in the industry. Oh, she's a bitch. Yep. A male's a hard driver in the industry. Oh, he's a narcissist. Yeah, they are. Because mediocrity has a lot of soulmates and a lot of friends. But what happens is when we allow our circumstances, our environment to define us, we always come within one iteration inside of our comfort zones. And so every day our comfort zones get closer and closer and closer. And then they start falling deeper and deeper and deeper. They never push. So it's what I call the fishbowl effect. If I buy a goldfish from Walmart, buy a 5-gallon fishbowl, put the goldfish in it, that goldfish is going to swim in that goldfish bowl and never jump out. It's going to say, feed me, I'm happy. Yay, it's great. But if I put it in a bigger tank, that goldfish is going to grow bigger. It's still never going to jump out. See, our minds are the same way. If you say, all I'm ever going to be is this, then that's all you're ever going to be. And you're actually going to be one step inside of that. But you're going to sit miserable that you didn't give everything you had. So we have to break our fish bowls. We have to break our standards. I had a conversation with my 21-year-old daughter last night, who's kind of in one of these points of like, what is it I exactly want in my life? She's extremely creative. She started a jewelry line. She's got 10,000 followers on Instagram since November. She's doing great, right? Okay. And she's like, but I'm like, you've got to find something that gives you the passion, but don't get caught up trying to find the job role. Find the tasks that makes you excited, whether it's your jewelry or working for somebody. I said, you need to go work for somebody else anyways. You've got to learn what it's like.
And learn business, right? I am grateful that I worked for somebody for 10 years out of school and then after that, not so much after that, but I mean, you have to learn it somewhere. And you've got to be willing to be coached and you've got to be willing to be criticized. And I said, you've got to be, how bad do you want it? Because all along the way, you're going to have people who tell you, don't go to law school, don't go to med school, don't go into the car industry, don't write a book, because all you're hearing is everybody else's BS about why they couldn't succeed. Right.
If everybody tells everyone not to go to law school, there is still somebody at the top of that damn mountain who figured it out.
Right.
And if a player comes to me and they want to be a professional athlete and they say, oh, I want to try being a pro athlete. My parents have enough money for 3 years. I'm like, you're not going to make it because you're trying a professional route. I want you to say, I'm going to be a professional out. Prove me that I'm wrong. I'm going to make this. And if at the end of the day, we look at it and we say, you know what? I just can't make it. Then God knows I've given everything I've had. And too many people try something. They don't do something.
Oh, I like that. And trying it is that you stick your foot in the pond. Doing it is that you jump in and you swim across that pond, no matter what's at the bottom of it, and you keep pushing through to the other side.
Correct. And try means you had an exit strategy.
Ah, okay. So you're saying, if you're all in, if you know you want to do something, you don't think about the exit strategy. You're like, I do it or I die. End of story.
What is the ultimate? If I came to you, God help you. If I came to you and said, Lisa, everything that you created just went gone.
I'd go create something else.
You'd go create something else.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need an exit strategy. You don't need a side game.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I've got a buddy in here in the office here today who is he's in your industry, very successful. He's got another industry that he's got, and he is so excited doing this. But because he's so fascinated, but Google and Facebook bring him out and meet with him. He's brilliant. I'll connect you guys at some point. But it's brilliant to watch him because his success formula will work now in a second industry. Now, the first one is booming. It's killing it. Okay.
Right.
And he's still as active and as focused as he can be. But the mindset is he ain't trying this. He's doing this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is do or die. I know, when I stepped away and from a very, very high profile gig, it was like, I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think at some point with people like us that once you've rang every bell, which was my deal, it was like, there was nothing else I could do to outdo what I'd done. I mean, end of story. And so now it is time to take all of that, package it, and go, just like your friend is doing, and go put it in other industries and whatever. And, you and I talked earlier that, I was at MIT speaking, and they hired me to come in with 40 global entrepreneurs. I mean, talk about shaking in my heels. I was like, oh my God, what could I say to these global entrepreneurs, Mexico, Singapore, Japan? I mean, they were from all over the world. And they walked out and they were like, what a perspective you have. And you see, it isn't that mine's the best perspective. It's just my perspective. And
you gave it everything you had at it.
Yeah. And it's different 100%. From your perspective. Okay. I want to switch gears for a second. I want to talk about LeBron.
Okay.
I don't know why, like my son came in doing the happy dance last night. Like, you would have thought, right? The Lakers, he's always been a Lakers fan, Shaq and Kobe and, beyond. Like he has a tattoo on his rear end of Kobe in his jersey. So that's pretty sad. But anyways, that being said, why is
we won't go there to the story about why was it? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Why is the whole world turned on their ear, about the fact that LeBron left and went to the Lakers? I mean, I'm sure the Lakers are happy, but it cost them, what, $154 million?
Yeah, but they have the money, right? Because now they know people are going to be watching. Here's the deal about great athletes is we build them up because of how much they make us engaged in something we have no control over, right?
Right.
We have no control. Your son has no control if the Lakers are going to win or lose, but we have this perception by cheering that they will.
He's obsessed with them. Has been since he's 27 years old. Yeah. He has been since he was a little boy.
Which is great. I mean, that's why we love fandom. That's why the World Cup is a world game.
Which I can literally hear it going on downstairs right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. And here's the deal about LeBron. LeBron is a homegrown talent that has tried to give his hometown team a couple championships. Okay, he's done his job. But we are a capitalistic society of free market movement. He has a great opportunity to go to LA, which gives him so many more business options. And while he can have all the business options he wants, and he has more money he'll ever need, what is he trying to do? Accomplish something. We don't know. Don't know. Only he knows that, and his team knows that.
Right. So were you, because obviously, you're in the industry. Were you surprised that he made the move?
No, I figured it was time to come. You saw it with Shaquille O'Neal. You see it with players all the time, right? Is that they go to the bigger markets. Everybody in every industry, rock stars want to be actors. Athletes want to be rock stars.
Oh, good point.
Physicians want to be restaurant owners. I mean, everybody wants to be something else. And you sit there and you look at somebody and you're like, oh my God, you've got the greatest gig in the world. You play music for a living. And they're like, oh, but if I could just act. It's like, we're just not made to be content. So the content answer was for LeBron to stay where he was, to be a Cavalier for life, and to get, but there's new land out there.
Yeah.
And how can I perform in that land? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, no, it's just, it's crazy. And just this whole thing behind the World Cup, like I said, literally here, my son's getting ready to move into a new place. So he had to, move here for a couple of months. And so, I mean, I hear the World Cup going on right now downstairs. I mean, he works, but he works from home for Dell. But, you know, I mean, I hear the World Cup going on. I mean, Sports Center's on in my house 24/7 at all times. What is the fascination with, you know, sports and following every single thing? I mean, you know, my husband, it doesn't matter if it's track or if it's baseball and football. My husband was an athlete all through college also. And, you know, but what is that fascination?
But let's look at why CrossFit hit. Ultimately, what was it? It was competition.
Right.
See, we're craving competitiveness.
Right.
But we're raising a society that's non-competitive.
Because they all get trophies at soccer.
They're entitled. They're entitled to everything. Look. If we look back to the greatest generation, all right, and you know, what I mean by that is the one that they've deemed the greatest generation, right after World War II.
I actually got to take a group of them to on honor flight, and it was the greatest experience of my life. It was on my 50th birthday, and amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. So what did they teach? They came back and they said, "Man, I've seen the horrors, but I want to create a better future for my next generation."
Mm-hmm.
We went to the 60s, 70s, and it was, you can have what you want, but you have to work hard. You have to, we had a little hiccup here and there about, you know, finding your own. But then the 80s came in, and it was the
capitalism. Ronald Reagan.
Yes, you can have what you want if you work hard.
Yep.
You can achieve what you want if you work hard. And then we went to the 90s, which was, you can have what you want if you create something powerful, new, the .com. And now we're in a world of, you can have what you want.
Period.
We've forgotten the other parts.
Right.
Okay. We've got entire academic centers training people that they're brilliant, smart, and talented with no experience whatsoever.
Right. And do you think that's something to do with this whole like YouTube era and everybody's on, you know, and you and I are guilty of it too, but I feel like we have at least a business experience to go behind it. But, you know, everybody's on YouTube. Everyone wants to be a celebrity. Like, what is this whole celebrity thing? And that's what I think I see coming on now. I mean, I have a dear friend, and her 13-year-old daughter told her the other day, in all seriousness, she said, "Mom, I don't think I need to go to college. I think I'm going to build a successful YouTube show and be a star on YouTube." And she called me. She's like, "What would you do with that?" I'm like, "Take away her telephone?"
Maybe, but here's the deal, right? So I had a conversation with a friend of mine about this. Is, you know, what does a $200,000 education get you if your degree isn't a specialization?
Right.
It gets you maturation. It gets you experience. I'm all for going to college, but I'm also going for the military or going to learn whatever it takes for you individually. But if she has the ability to create a workforce and to get people to move and to be an influencer based on something.
Right.
Now, the problem with being a YouTube influencer is that we see the top 10, we miss the bottom 10 million.
Right.
And so we miss what it takes to do that. We see the Kim Kardashians, the Kardashian family, who are brilliant business people.
They are. You got to get
brilliant business people.
Mm-hmm.
We miss, you know, we see the Casey Neistats with 9 million YouTube followers who does brilliant videography and telling stories. But all the people out there who are hustling, who aren't making it, to me, it's like, that's where you say, I'm going to go work my job at XYZ agency. And then on the side, I'm going to develop this. I think we've seduced an entire culture to think you have to be all in, which means go work. I have a deal for my professional athletes if they're in the young ranks, and I'll say, well, why don't you go work at Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, and Stack Shop? Oh, see, I don't. Then you don't want it. Then you don't want it. Because if you're willing to do whatever it takes to go wait tables, to bartend, and still train, then you want it bad enough to do it. But if you only want to do it on your terms, the world isn't going to be at your terms forever. So
right. And it's always something bigger and better comes behind you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So how many hours a day? I mean, you know, you have a new course I know that launched yesterday, which I'm super excited about. I'm very excited to be able to introduce it into the automotive industry because, you know, in any industry, right? I mean, sales is a mindset. Business is a mindset. And so I know that you took all the principles that you know from being a top sports psychologist, and you've put it into this course. So talk to us about what's in this course. Talk to us about you know, how the average person can benefit from what you're launching.
So this course is an appetizer, and the appetizer to the full program that's coming. So about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I looked at the business and said, we've got to do better reaching people. People have, you know, the phones, the traditional media market's gone, in my opinion. You know, I can't remember the last time I watched network television. It's either Netflix, YouTube, you know, there's something. And I think it's one of those things of importance where we have to create the message and drive the message accordingly. And so what I did is I took a look at the business and said, you know what, we got to do a better job of that. And we came back in and started thinking, all right, how can we get the message out to the right people? One of the messages was that we're losing competitiveness and we have to learn to win every moment we're in. And the only way we do that is practice, training. So I put together a program and said, let's deliver the content to people's smartphones and access. That's what started this. And that's how I met with the agents to market and things like that. And the idea is that each person, whether you're in business, life, sport, anything, life is a competition. Do you understand how to prepare for those moments that you have? People say the moment doesn't define you. Yeah, it does. Yes, it does.
I love that.
It defines you. So learn to win them. And if you don't succeed initially, keep fighting. Then what do you do when you get in the heat of the moment? When it gets real, when it gets tough and it gets challenging, then what do you do after the moment? And then go from there. And that's what I want you to do.
Yeah, no, I love it. So when you say, so this is just kind of an appetizer to the big program that you've got coming out.
Yes. So what we're doing is we have another series of them that are coming. So we also launched this idea called the 4-step process, which is the way that people can look at each individual problems in their lives. Then we have the viruses series, which is the viruses of the mind side. What are the things that naturally attack the way we coach, the way we lead, the way we parent, and the way we perform? So there's 7 different viruses for each factor. So for instance, in performance, the biggest thing I see is that people don't believe they're good enough to achieve what they desire. So how do we address that? How do we attack that? How do we address that? And so understanding that, and then over the next couple of months, you're going to see probably 2 video series a month being dropped on different topics. Some are based on some of the business stuff that I did in pharma, a selling process that I worked with that was the largest ROI in the history of the company. It's based on scientific research when it comes to psychology. That's going to be coming in October. And then the next series after that is going to be, individual sport specific and such.
Yeah. But now the first series, they're going to be great for people that are in business, that are in sales, entrepreneurs, right? Because it really is a mindset because, the thing I found about being an entrepreneur, that the only person who can get me going in the morning is me. So yes. It isn't like I get to go to work and I've got a boss going rah, rah, or a sales manager going rah, rah. No, I am the rah, rah. And yes. To your point, we got to get up every single day. My new keynote and my new courses, are unapologetically fierce 365 days a year. You can never let it down. You can never, ever let it down. When you're an entrepreneur or you're a professional athlete or whatever, it isn't like, I get to be fierce from Monday through Friday, 40 hours a week because someone else is going to carry the ball. No. Being an entrepreneur, being in business, being a leader, it isn't for sissies. It just isn't for sissies. And so what I love about your courses and what you guys do, which is how you and I connected, was that you help people build the mindset to be successful. And it is a mindset because fear and anxiety, all of those things are knocking at the door all the time. I like to say that that danger is real, but fear is a choice. And 94% of what we fear in both life and business, it never materializes, but it Correct. Takes 96% of our brain space.
Yes.
And so, working with someone like you or your organization, that you can really help people repurpose. Because I think in business, fear is the number one thing that stops people. It's just
absolutely it is.
Like, what if I fail? Well, you're gonna fail. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I saw a meme a long time ago, but what if you don't? What if
you know what? If you don't fail, you'll deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
you'll deal with it. Here's the thing. Uncertainty scares all of us. Remember, we want stability, and stability is predictability. And if we can predict things, well, most of the time what we can predict is the negative, because that's how our brain is highly functioned and highly skilled, is to identify the problems. So it can say, oh, wait, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. Now, most of the time it's wrong, but it can't miss it. So the brain is better to identify a threat that is wrong than to miss a threat that was right. So it's going to feed your brain with wrong information all the time. And it's your job to filter and say, wait a minute here. When we find ourselves ruminating and just getting caught up on all the fears, it's better to sit back and say, wait a minute here. What is the worst that could happen? All right. If my boss, if you want to freak me out, send me a message that says, hey, we need to chat. Because my mind is going to go to the 10 wrong things and be like, oh my God, did I do this wrong? Did I do that wrong? Versus going, you know what? So what? If they're ticked off at me, they're ticked off at me. So what? I'll deal with it.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And so, I mean, I'm just, like I said, I'm really excited to know you and to, I met with your team a couple of weeks ago about, how we can incorporate some of what your team does and what my team does, because it's critical. And I mean, sales is a mental game. And if you cannot play the mental game, and if you crater under the fear, I hate to say, I don't believe that you're ever going to get to where you're going. And so I think for a business person, like we're an athlete, not only are you training their bodies and their minds, I think a business person needs to be under professional mind training. You just do. It's tough out there. It's noisy. It's,
You know what? A great knife, when you have a sharp knife, you sharpen it when it's sharp to make it sharper. You don't wait till it goes dull.
Right.
And why waste the energy, the time, the effort? Why waste the opportunities by not taking advantage of being disciplined to the little things? The greatest of the great, they train every day. And if it's good enough for the greats, why wouldn't it be good enough for you?
That's right.
And even if you don't have the money, you say, I can't afford it, then do other things. Read, learn, watch YouTube, study people to develop your own philosophy. How many of the people listening to this have their own personal philosophy written down?
That'd be interesting to know. And so everybody out there, if you've got one, I know you were on Facebook Live, write them down for us so that Bhrett and I could see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. No, that's great. Like mine, I can tell you what mine is off. It isn't what you sell, it's what you stand for. And if you stand for something big enough, people will buy what you're selling. I believe that, Yeah. But I think you have to have something that's so ingrained in your soul. So what is yours?
My overall philosophy is find the solution to every opportunity that exists to do it differently and to raise it to a different level. So if we do it one way, I want to find a way to do it better. Everything can be turned upside down and find a better solution to find a better answer to it.
So that just shows everything you do, you're always, but you see, you are already, what I'm hearing is you are that sharp knife. And even when you're as sharp as you can be, you're sharpening it some more because you're trying to figure out even a better way than you did yesterday.
Yeah. 100%.
So when you say better, is it more efficient? Is it less stressful, less chance of failure? What do you mean by a better way?
Well, it's not going to be less stressful because all change is stressful. It might be more efficient. It may get to a wider audience. It may have a better message, but that's what we have to ask ourselves. So I'm the biggest critic. If I go back and watch the videos, I'm going to go back and watch those videos and pick them apart with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah. I mean, don't we all? I mean, I learned, I talked about this on my speaking circuit last week. I said, the thing I learned not to do is to read, like anytime I do national TV or something, it's like, you know what? I won't even read it anymore. All the stuff underneath, It's super easy for haters to hate from the cheap seats, and, so there's a thing about not reading your own press or maybe not watching your own videos. I do think you should watch your videos so you can get better as a speaker. But, I think that you have to really, and I've done this, you have to insulate yourself, right? I've got my inner tribe. And if you're not my inner tribe, you're probably not getting to me. And I really try to insulate and protect that because I don't want to get off onto a mindset that could crush everything that I'm working so hard to do. So I think you have to be protective of it.
Absolutely. And more importantly, what is the most important essence that each of us have in our own lives?
That's a question. I mean, the most important essence, I don't know. I mean,
take away family and faith. Let's take that away.
Yeah.
That's the answer people have.
Just confidence, I guess, or just,
belief.
Yeah. Belief. Yeah.
People who
You're not going to charge me for this session, are you?
No.
I can only imagine what, you charge per hour.
No, it's not that bad. But it's the belief. It's the inner belief that we have in ourselves to push through. It allows us to push through struggle, to keep going during doubt, to push through to succeed when we're in position to succeed, and so on. People don't succeed when they don't believe.
No.
They may have short-term success, but then they need to repeat it and they need to see that validation.
Right. Yeah, I know. And I love what you said. So as we wrap things up, what would be the 3 takeaways that you would leave with our viewers? And then everybody, I'm going to post up on everything, how you can get a hold of Dr. McCabe and his team and about his course. But give us the 3 takeaways that you would give for people that are in business, want to be in business, entrepreneurs, whatever it may be.
Well, first of all, You got to know what you want. So take a piece of paper out, 8.5 by 11, and at the top, write, I want. And I call it red wine therapy. Go pour yourself a glass of red wine, sit down on the back deck, and just take a piece of paper and just start writing everything that you want. Know what you want. And then on the back side of that paper, write down the facets of you that may prevent you from being successful. Okay. Then you'll know, and you'll get your fears and doubts on the page. And that's important. So you can see where you want to go and see what may be preventing you, so you can work around it. That's number one. Number two, surround yourself with people who are going to both challenge you. I think we should have 5 people in our lives. Mm-hmm. I think we should have colleagues, people who have been there, walk the walk, who I can make a phone call on and say, hey, this is a challenge. This is, what I'm doing. This is hard. And they'll give you an honest answer. We got to have people who build our confidence. Hey, that's awesome. You did great. Man, you're wonderful. We should have competitors, people we compete with on a daily basis. I think we should have people who challenge us, people who work to make us better, who tell us that what we're doing is not good enough. And then we should have critiquers, people who are critiquing us at a much harder level. I think if you can get those 5 people around you, then you can actually be successful.
It's so funny that you have your red wine list. I actually have the no pain, no champagne. And I tell them, I tell people, what are your pain points? Write them down. And once you write them down, you acknowledge them, then we'll start drinking. That's the no pain.
Absolutely.
No pain.
Absolutely.
We're on the same level, for sure.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today and for pouring into our viewers. You're truly an inspiration, and what you do is an inspiration. Where can somebody find you right now? We will post it, but go ahead and just give a shout out for how people can connect with you.
Go to themindside.com. That's the fastest way to do it. If you want to follow me on social media, it's a little bit more difficult because of the way I spell my name, but it's at Dr. Bhrett McCabe. But if you go to @themindside, you can get to all of our social media from there.
Yeah, no, thank you again. What an inspiration. I'm dying to go through your course myself.
Well, we'll get you started on it.
Thank you. Okay, everybody out there. Like I said, I only bring people that are big sellers and that can help take your business and your life to the next level. So anyways, thank you again, Dr. McCabe. I wish you continued success. And everybody out there, I'll see you again today at 4:30 when I've got Dan Lear, sales extraordinaire, came out of Tony Robbins, one of the best speakers I've ever heard in my life. And he's got a great story to tell us. So I'll see everybody at 4:30 Central Standard Time on Big Sellers again today on this station.